Oxidation-reduction reactions are reactions in which electrons are transferred. Oxidation means that there is a loss of electrons, and because electrons are negative, when a species is oxidized, its oxidation state will increase. Reduction is a gain of electrons, which means its oxidation state will decrease. When you have metal-nonmetal reactions, the metal always forms a cation. The metal always loses electrons. So the metal is always oxidized. The nonmetal always gains electrons. It's always reduced. So if you have a simple metal-nonmetal synthesis reaction and you're asked to identify what's oxidized and what's reduced, it's very simple because the metal's oxidized, the nonmetal is reduced. You could also assign your oxidation states and see that aluminum's oxidation state increases, so it's oxidized. Fluoride's oxidation state decreases, so it's reduced. So again, in this example, sodium's the metal, so it's going to be oxidized. Chlorine's the nonmetal, so it's going to be reduced. Using that same example of the sodium and the chlorine, we need to talk about oxidizing agents and reducing agents. So the sodium is oxidized because its oxidation state goes from a 0 to a +1. But that sodium is also called the reducing agent, and it's called the reducing agent because it does the reducing by donating an electron. The chlorine is reduced. This is called the oxidizing agent. It's called the oxidizing agent because it does the oxidizing by accepting an electron. You cannot have oxidation without reduction. Sodium's not just like shooting electrons off into space. It has to be donating an electron to something else. And so that is why chlorine is called the oxidizing agent, because it is accepting that donated electron, so it's doing the oxidizing. With this reaction, the carbon is going to go from a -4 to a +4, and the oxygen is going to go from a 0 to a -2. So the carbon is what's being oxidized, but notice the reducing agent is actually methane, is CH4. So the atom is oxidized or reduced, but the reactant that contains that atom is the agent, is the oxidizing agent or reducing agent. So carbon is oxidized, methane is the reducing agent because it is the reactant that contains carbon. The oxygen should probably not be O2, I should just say oxygen is reduced. So the O2 is the oxidizing agent because that is the reactant that contains the thing that's being reduced, in this case, oxygen. So doing this one, aluminum's going 0 to +3, iodine's going 0 to -1. So aluminum is being oxidized. It's by itself, so it is also just aluminum that is the reducing agent. The iodine is being reduced, and so it is the I2, the reactant containing that iodine, that is the oxidizing agent. In this last example here, lead is going from a +2 to a 0. Carbon is going from a +2 to a +4. So the carbon is being oxidized, but it is the carbon monoxide that is the reducing agent. The lead is being reduced, but it is the reactant containing that lead, so the lead oxide, that is the oxidizing agent.